There's something Carl Jung uncovered about the human mind that set modern psychology reeling. Something so profound, so unsettling, that decades later, it's still deliberately ignored in universities. And the most intriguing part? Eckhart Tolle arrived at the same conclusion through a completely different path. If you've ever felt there's more to your mind than traditional psychology explains, you're not wrong. In fact, you're more right than you know. What I'm about to reveal goes against everything we've learned about consciousness. It will challenge the official narrative of how our minds really work. And perhaps in the end, you'll understand why they preferred to keep it quiet. It all began in 1913. Jung was at the height of his career, a disciple of Freud, respected, recognized, until something happened that changed everything. He began having visions. These weren't hallucinations. This wasn't madness. It was something he himself couldn't explain with the psychological tools of the time. Images, symbols, knowledge coming from where exactly? Jung spent years trying to understand this, and the more he investigated, the more he realized he'd stumbled upon something revolutionary, something materialistic science simply couldn't accept. He discovered a layer of consciousness that connects all human beings, a dimension of the mind that doesn't belong to the individual, but to humanity as a whole. He called it the collective unconscious. But here's what they don't tell you in psychology school. Jung wasn't talking about an abstract theory. He was describing a real experience, a dimension of consciousness you can access, that you've already accessed, even without realizing it. You know those moments when you have an inexplicable intuition? When you meet someone and immediately feel something familiar? When you have a dream that seems to carry a universal meaning? That's not coincidence. It's the collective unconscious manifesting. Modern psychology prefers to ignore this. Why? Because admitting Jung was right would mean admitting that consciousness is far more than just brain activity. It would be recognizing that there's a spiritual dimension to the human mind. And that breaks the entire materialistic paradigm of current science. Now imagine the surprise when Eckhart Tolle, decades later, without ever having deeply studied Jung, began to describe the exact same reality, only from a different angle. Tolle speaks of what he calls collective consciousness. This layer of thoughts, emotions, and patterns that aren't yours, but that you carry as if they were, as if all of humanity were thinking through you. Coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidence when two geniuses arrive at the same truth through completely different paths. But wait, the story gets even more intriguing. Jung discovered that within this collective unconscious, there are universal patterns, images and symbols that appear in all cultures, in all times. He called them archetypes: the mother, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man. These archetypes aren't cultural creations. They're structures of human consciousness itself, as if our minds came with pre-installed software. Academic psychology tries to explain this through evolution and genetics. But Jung knew there was something more. He perceived that these patterns had a almost sacred quality. And here's something that will make you question everything you know about reality. Jung discovered that when you connect deeply with these archetypes, something extraordinary happens. You're no longer limited by your individual personality. You access a wisdom that transcends your personal experience. It's as if you become a channel for something greater, a collective intelligence, a universal consciousness. Tolle describes exactly this when he talks about the now. That state of pure presence where you are no longer your thoughts, your emotions, your personal history. You are something much greater, something he calls being. Jung and Tolle are talking about the same thing, the same revolutionary discovery, the same truth that modern psychology prefers to ignore. There is a dimension of consciousness that is larger than the individual, a collective intelligence you can access, a universal wisdom that is always available. But here's the problem. Accepting this means questioning everything. It means admitting that consciousness isn't produced by the brain. It means recognizing that there is something spiritual in human nature, and that scares the institutions. Have you ever stopped to think why modern psychology is so focused on pathology? Why are we always talking about disorders, dysfunctions, mental problems? It's easier to keep people focused on their limitations than to reveal their unlimited potential. Jung knew this. That's why he was gradually marginalized. His deepest concepts were diluted, academic, stripped of their real transformative power. They took the collective unconscious and turned it into an interesting academic theory. But they completely lost the experience, the living, the transformation that Jung truly discovered. It's like taking fire and trying to study it without feeling the heat. Tolle went through something similar. When he started talking about consciousness and presence, they tried to frame him as a self-help guru, as if he were selling relaxation techniques. But anyone who has truly experienced what Tolle teaches knows that he's talking about something revolutionary, a complete change of identity, a death of the egoic personality, and a birth into something infinitely greater. The same transformation that Jung experienced when he connected with the collective unconscious. Now you might be wondering, how can I access this? How can I experience this dimension of consciousness? Jung discovered that there are portals, specific moments where the veil between the conscious and the collective unconscious becomes thinner. Deep dreams, meditative states, moments of existential crisis, intense artistic experiences. Tolle speaks of portals too, only he calls them presence. Those moments where you stop thinking and simply exist, where you become aware of consciousness itself. They are the same portals, the same openings to a wider reality. But there's something that neither Jung nor Tolle emphasize sufficiently, something I discovered by studying both deeply. These portals aren't rare and special events. They are available at every moment. The problem is that we've been conditioned to ignore them. Modern society, with its obsessive focus on productivity, consumption, and entertainment, has created a nearly impenetrable barrier between you and this deeper dimension of consciousness. It's as if we live in a constant noise, a cacophony that drowns out the universe's underlying music. Jung perceived this at the dawn of the 20th century. He saw how industrialization and materialism were disconnecting people from their deepest psychic roots. He called it the malaise of modern civilization. Tolle sees the same thing today. He talks about how the human mind has become compulsive, addicted to thought, incapable of simply being, as if we've become slaves to our own thinking. But here's the part that will change your perspective forever. Jung and Tolle aren't just diagnosing the problem, they're pointing to the solution. And the solution is simpler and more radical than you can imagine. The truth is, you already have access to the collective unconscious. You already are the universal consciousness that Tolle describes. You always have been. The problem isn't that you need to acquire something new. The problem is that you need to stop doing something old. Stop identifying with your thoughts. Stop believing you are your personal history. Stop seeking your identity in external things. Jung discovered that when you stop identifying with the personal ego, you automatically connect with something universal. As if the ego were a cloud blocking the sun. Tolle describes exactly this. He talks about how transformation isn't a process of adding something to your life, but of removing the layers of false identification that obscure who you truly are. It's like a sculpture. Michelangelo said he didn't create his sculptures. He simply removed the marble that was hiding the artwork that already existed. You don't need to become conscious. You need to stop pretending you're not conscious. And here's where things get really interesting. Jung discovered that there are levels to this universal consciousness, layers within the collective unconscious. And the deeper you go, the more you realize there's no separation between you and the rest of humanity. It's not just that you have access to collective wisdom. It's that you are the collective wisdom, expressing itself through an individual form. Tolle talks about this when he describes the One. That perception that beneath all seemingly separate forms, there's a single consciousness, a single being manifesting as many. It's the same discovery, the same revelation, the same truth that terrifies academic institutions. Because if this is true, then everything changes. Our entire understanding of identity, of reality, of what it means to be human. If Jung and Tolle are right, then you're not an isolated individual struggling to survive in a hostile world. You are a unique manifestation of infinite consciousness playing at being limited. And this discovery changes everything. But wait, take a deep breath for a moment, because what I'm about to reveal goes beyond any psychological theory or spiritual teaching you've ever heard. Jung and Tolle discovered something that goes against everything we've been taught about how transformation works. Something that explains why millions of people try to change their lives and fail repeatedly. The truth is, you can't transform yourself, at least not in the way you think. Jung realized this during his experiments with the collective unconscious. Every time he tried to control or direct his visions, they stopped coming. It was like trying to hold water in your hands. Real transformation doesn't happen when you try to transform. It happens when you stop trying to be anything. Tolle discovered exactly this during his awakening experience. He didn't seek enlightenment. He was on the verge of suicide, completely exhausted from trying to be someone, when suddenly everything changed. It wasn't because he did something right. It was because he stopped doing something wrong. He stopped trying to be Eckhart Tolle, and the moment identification with the personal personality ceased, something infinitely greater took its place. Jung called this psychological death, a moment where the ego structure dissolves and you experience directly what lies behind it. It's not a mental experience. It's not a philosophical idea. It's a literal death of everything you thought you were. And on the other side of that death, you discover there was never a you to die. Does this sound scary? It should, because it means everything you call my life is a constructed illusion. But here's what's fascinating. Jung documented that people from all cultures, in all eras, have undergone this same experience, as if it were a universal potential of human consciousness, Tolle sees this too. He perceives that more and more people are spontaneously awakening to this reality, as if the very evolution of consciousness is accelerating. But there's something that neither Jung nor Tolle fully explain. Why is this happening now? Why are so many people questioning the official reality at this specific moment in history? The answer will surprise you. We're living in a unique moment, a moment where the external structures of society are collapsing. Economic systems, political systems, social systems, all showing signs of failure. And when external structures collapse, something extraordinary happens. People are forced to seek stability internally. Jung predicted this. He knew there would come a time in human history where people would be obliged to turn inward, where the only way out would be through the transformation of consciousness. Tolle talks about this as the new awakening, a collective shift in human consciousness happening in response to the planetary crisis. It's no coincidence you're hearing this now. It's no accident you're questioning the official narratives about reality, psychology, spirituality. You are part of this wave of awakening that Jung anticipated and Tolle is documenting. But here's what they don't tell you about this awakening. It doesn't happen gradually. It's not a slow process of self-improvement. It's a quantum leap, an instantaneous shift in identity that changes everything in the blink of an eye. Jung experienced this at age 38, when he had his first vision of the collective unconscious. In seconds, his entire understanding of reality changed completely. Tolle experienced this at age 29 during his dark night of the soul, a transformation so radical that he woke up a completely different person. And the most impressive thing, both described that after this transformation, they realized they had always been what they became, as if they had simply woken up from a dream about being limited. This isn't poetry, it's neuroscience. Recent studies on mystical experiences reveal something fascinating. During expanded states of consciousness, certain neural networks literally shut down. Specifically, the networks responsible for the sense of a separate self. It's as if the brain stops generating the illusion of separation, and you directly experience the unity that Jung and Eckhart Tolle describe. But here's where it gets really interesting. These studies show you don't need psychedelic substances or years of meditation to access these states. You simply need to stop fueling the neural pathways that keep the illusion of separation active. And how do you do that? Jung discovered a specific technique. He called it active imagination. You allow images and symbols to spontaneously arise in your consciousness, without trying to control or interpret them. It's like daydreaming, but with a crucial difference. You're not creating the images. You're allowing the collective unconscious to express itself through you. Tolle developed a similar, but more direct technique. He calls it observing the thinker. You simply observe your thoughts without identifying with them. It seems simple, but when you really do this, something radical happens. You realize there's a you that's observing the thoughts. And that observer cannot be fought. It's pure consciousness, formless, historyless, limitless. Jung and Eckhart Tolle are showing you the same portal, just from different angles. But there's a secret that very few people discover. A shortcut that Jung only mentioned in his personal letters, and that Tolle rarely emphasizes in his public teachings. The most profound transformation happens through what Jung called confrontation with the shadow. Your shadow isn't just your negative aspects. It's everything you've rejected about yourself. Everything you've deemed unacceptable, dangerous, inadequate. And here's the paradox. Your shadow contains not only your most destructive aspects, but also your most extraordinary powers. Jung realized that the qualities we most deny in ourselves are often our most unique gifts, distorted by fear and social repression. Tolle speaks about this when he describes how the ego is formed. You learn from childhood to reject parts of yourself to be accepted. And those rejected parts don't disappear. They remain in the unconscious, subtly influencing your life. True awakening happens when you stop running from your shadow and consciously integrate it. It's not about becoming a better person. It's about becoming a complete person. And when this happens, something extraordinary occurs. You stop projecting your unconscious fears and desires onto the external world. You stop needing external enemies to feel good about yourself. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who you thought you should be. Tolle describes it as the end of the seeking, the moment where you stop trying to become someone and completely accept who you are. These are different descriptions of the same realization, but there's something even deeper here, something few people perceive. When you integrate your personal shadow, you automatically connect with the collective shadow, with all the aspects that humanity as a whole has rejected and repressed. And at that moment, you're no longer just healing yourself. You're participating in the collective healing of the species. Jung believed that individuals who go through this process of individuation become agents of collective transformation. People who, simply by existing in an integrated way, raise the consciousness around them. Tolle sees this too. He talks about how awakened people naturally radiate a quality of presence that affects everyone around them, even without doing anything specific. It's as if they become antennas for a higher frequency of consciousness. And here's something that'll make you rethink everything about your life's purpose. Perhaps your true purpose isn't to achieve something specific. Perhaps it's simply to be yourself completely, without masks, without pretensions, without trying to be special or avoiding being ordinary. Jung spent the second half of his life exploring this possibility. He realized that when you stop trying to be extraordinary and simply accept your ordinary nature, something extraordinary happens naturally. Tolle teaches exactly this. He shows that the most powerful presence emerges when you stop trying to be powerful. It's the ultimate paradox of conscious transformation. Now, let me share something I've discovered studying both Jung and Eckhart Tolle deeply. Something neither explicitly states, but which is implicit in everything they teach. There's a specific moment on the awakening journey where you realize there never was a journey. You've always been what you were seeking. Awakening didn't happen in time. It's always been your essential nature. Jung experienced this when he realized that the collective unconscious wasn't something external he had discovered. It was his own deepest nature revealing itself to itself. Tolle describes this as the understanding that the now isn't a moment in time. It's the timeless dimension of consciousness where you've always existed. It's the ultimate realization, the understanding that dissolves even the need to understand. But there's something even more revolutionary about this discovery. If you've always been unlimited consciousness, merely pretending to be limited, then all suffering, all seeking, all struggle for transformation was just consciousness playing with itself. There was no victim, no real problem, nothing that needed fixing. There was only consciousness exploring the experience of limitation to rediscover its own unlimited nature. Jung hinted at this when he spoke of life as a divine game, a cosmic play where universal consciousness experiences being individual to later rediscover its true nature. Tolle points to this when he talks about how awakening isn't a personal achievement. It's consciousness recognizing itself. And now you might be wondering, if this is all a game, if there's nothing to be fixed, why do I still feel suffering? Why do I still feel limited? Because you're still pretending to be limited. And you're pretending so well that you've forgotten you're pretending. Jung and Eckhart Tolle are simply reminding you that you're an actor who got lost in the character, who identified so much with the role that you forgot your true identity. Awakening is simply remembering. And when you remember, the comedy gets even funnier, because you realize you spent your whole life searching for something you never lost, wrestling with limitations that were never real, trying to become someone you always were. It's the ultimate cosmic joke. And when you finally get the joke, you can't stop laughing. Jung laughed a lot in his later years. Tolle has a permanent smile on his face. It's not spiritual bliss. It's the humor of complete understanding. They discovered that existence is a divine comedy. And you are both the comedian and the audience. Now you know why modern psychology doesn't want you to discover this. Because if you discover who you really are, you won't need therapy anymore. You won't need self-help. You won't need anyone to tell you how to live your life. You'll simply live as consciousness playing at being human. And that's the freedom Jung and Tolle are offering. The freedom to be yourself, completely, without excuses. The question is, are you ready to accept this freedom? Or would you rather continue pretending to be limited? The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, even the choice to keep pretending is part of the joke. Consciousness can't do anything wrong, not even when it pretends it can.